It's 1 p.m. Good afternoon and welcome to the news at 1 on Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station. I am Charity Jerome. First, the news headlines. UCH resident doctors embark on 5-day warning strike over eyepiece. House of Representatives urges federal government to halt licensing of oil service companies for use of explosives. On the foreign scene, United Nations voices outrage over Niger horrific killings. And in sports, new Barcelona president Joan Laporta pledges to do everything to keep striker Lionel Messi at the club. Well, now the news in detail. The Association of Resident Doctors, University College Hospital, UCH Chapter Ibadan, has embarked on a 5-day warning strike over unpaid 2-month salaries of its 370 members. Dr. Temitope Hussein said in Ibadan that the strike would end on Saturday. He said that the strike was to press home their protests over non-payment of January and February salaries of the affected members. According to him, 233 of the association's members have also not been enrolled into the Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System, IPIS, and consequently affecting the payment of their emoluments. Hussein said that the hospital's management has not been responsive to the dialogue initiated by the association. He, however, expressed hopes that at the expiration of the warning strike, an agreement would be reached. Reacting, the spokesperson of the hospital, Mr. Akintoye Akiriola, described as unfortunate the decision of the association to embark on a warning strike. He said that the issues raised are national issues rather than issues peculiar to the hospital. The Federal Executive Council, FEC, presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari, has approved $1.5 billion for the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery in Rivers State. Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timipre Silva, made this known when he briefed State House correspondents on the outcome of the council meeting held at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. According to him, the rehabilitation will be done in 3 phases of 18, 24, and 44 months. The minister stated that the rehabilitation was in fulfillment of federal government's desire to resuscitate the country's refineries to reduce the cost of processing petroleum products as well as boost the economy.
The Ministry of Petroleum Resources presented a memo on the rehabilitation of Port Harcourt refinery for the sum of $1.5 billion, and it was approved by council today. So we're happy to announce that the rehabilitation of Port Harcourt refinery will commence forthwith. It is in 3 phases. The first phase is to be completed in 18 months, which will take the refinery to a production of 90% of its nameplate capacity. The second phase is to be completed in 24 months, and the final stage will be completed in 44 months. And Council graciously approved, and I believe that this is good news for Nigerians, that the rehabilitation of our refineries have commenced.
The minister also disclosed that an Italian company would undertake the repairs and a maintenance company would also be put in place to ensure effective maintenance culture. According to Silva, the needed fund for the rehabilitation work has been earmarked, saying the funding will be shouldered by the federal government, Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC), and the Africa Export-Import Bank (Afrixim). The minister assured that rehabilitation works on Kaduna and Warri refineries would also be carried out on or before May 2023. Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai has restated his administration's resolve not to allow bandits to disrupt the education system. Governor El-Rufai said this when the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Isiaka Amao, visited him. The governor said the state government would do everything possible to stop bandits from disrupting the state's education system or destroy the future of the children. He commended security agencies for their steadfastness in the fight against banditry and insurgency in some parts of the country. El-Rufai pointed out that although there were still security challenges in the country, the security agencies had shown enormous capacity to surmount it. Earlier, the Chief of Air Staff said that his visit was to assess the preparedness of the Air Training Command, whose personnel are fighting the bandits in the northwest. Amao said that the security agencies were determined to wipe out the bandits to enable members of the public go about their lawful duties without fear. The House of Representatives has passed for second reading a bill for an act to prohibit religious discrimination in all forms in Nigeria. The bill, which has been referred to the Committee on Constitutional Review, was sponsored by Honorable Abdullahi Saidu from Niger State at plenary. The lawmaker says the bill, when passed into law, will address the raging religious discrimination in the country. He maintained that religious discrimination has caused negative consequences and also hindered sizable numbers of recognition from having access to education, healthcare, and other basic infrastructure.
The bill, when passed into law, is expected to address the raging religious discrimination in the country. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the issue of religious discrimination is one of the most prevalent menaces in the country today. It has caused negative consequences and has hindered a sizable number of the population from having access to education, healthcare, finance, employment, and even recreational and other service activities. There are instances where some citizens lose their jobs, employment opportunities, or even outrightly hindered from having access to healthcare.
In her submission, Linda Ikbazu noted that the bill would be forwarded to the appropriate committee for further legislative scrutiny.
What I would suggest is that this be passed to the Committee on Constitutional Review, so that, like I said, I do appreciate his position. As a human being, I believe in people having choice.
While ruling on the motion, Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila referred the bill to the Committee on Constitutional Review for prompt action. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has urged the Federal Ministry of Water Resources to carry out a holistic needs assessment of irrigation dams across the country. It added that the dams should be given priority attention to the construction of its irrigation projects in subsequent budget proposals. This was the position of the Green Chamber following a motion jointly moved by 3 lawmakers at plenary. Leading the debate, Honorable Saidu Mustafa from Adamawa State reiterated the need to revive dams across the nation, adding that investing into the sector would boost agricultural growth, enabling sufficient food production for the benefit of the country.
We should now address this problem of water, and the only alternative is this irrigation. So government should invest more in the river basins, so that at least this type of food shortages that we experience as a result of this erratic rainfall will be taken care of. We are advocating for self-sufficiency in rice. We even sometimes ban the importation of rice. And if we are not producing it in the country, that means there is going to be serious smuggling across our borders, and that's not going to be good for our economy.
While ruling on the motion, Deputy Speaker Ahmed Wase mandated the Committee on Water Resources to visit and access the 11 river basin development authorities, their dams and reservoir projects across the country to ascertain their level of operations and ensure appropriate budgetary allocations in subsequent years. But still on legislative matters, the House of Representatives Committee on Mines and Steel Development has urged the federal government to halt the licensing of oil service companies on the use and sale of explosives in the country. Chairman of the committee, Representative Michael Enyom, said this in Abuja after an investigative hearing on the licensing and sale of explosive devices by chief executives of some oil servicing companies in Nigeria. He asked the committee's clerk and its secretariat to convey the ruling to relevant agencies for enforcement. He said there was the need for individuals and corporate entities to comply with the provisions of the law on explosive usage. Enyom, after taking the memorandum submitted by AOS Oil Limited, Halliburton Limited and Envia Nigeria Limited, said that they were flouting the company's permits on the sale of explosives. We're listening to the news at 1 p.m. on Splash 105.5 FM. Still ahead, United Nations voices outrage over Niger horrific killings. And in sports, new Barcelona president Joan Laporta pledges to do everything to keep striker Lionel Messi at the club. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll bring you details of these and other stories. Please stay with us.
ọ̀rẹ́ wa ìjẹ́ egbògi yóyó bitters ń bá àgọ́ ara rẹ̀ ṣọ̀rẹ́ bí ìtumọ̀ ni pé ṣé òun lo egbògi yóyó bitters lójoojúmọ́ yóyó bitters egbògi tó ń dáàbò bo ara kúrò lọ́wọ́ àrùn àti àìsàn o lè máa lo yóyó bitters bí oúnjẹ aṣaralóore tàbí kí o máa lò ó bí oògùn gẹ́gẹ́ bí ìmọ̀ràn àwọn dókítà yóyó bitters egbògi tó ń fọ gẹ̀dẹ̀gẹ̀dẹ̀ ara ni yóyó bitters lọ́gán ló máa ń dẹ́kun ọ̀pá ẹ̀yìn tó ń roni yóyó bitters ọ̀pọ̀ ìlú tó kún lákòójù gbẹ́lúra kára ló yá gágá yóyó bitters àmọ́ rẹ̀ ní jí pépé fúnni lókun àti ṣiṣẹ́ akin ó gbani lọ́wọ́ àìsàn àti àjàkálẹ̀ àrùn ìdí nìyí tó fi gbọ́dọ̀ ní yóyó bitters láwọ̀ọ́wọ́tò rẹ̀ nínú ilé lọ́fíìsì níbikíbi ó wà lólómi lóní gel àti ní kóró tètè lọ ilé ìtajà òògùn tó bá súnmọ́ yóyó bitters ọ̀rẹ́ ìmùlẹ̀ tí ò gbọ́dọ̀ wọ́n ni yóyó bitters kára ó mọ́ tìlútòdì.
Mama Betty tún ti gbáradà ó ti gbé ti tún dé. Mama Betty tún ti gbáradà ó ti gbé ti tún dé. Àwa nígbàdí nílùú Ìbàdàn àtọ́jú lọ́wọ́ aṣọ.
Ìpínlẹ̀ Akọ́ni ọ̀sùn fi dà lálẹ́ dáadáa. Rẹ́jísítọ̀ tún ti kójú lọ́wọ́ aṣọ wọ̀lú fún gbogbo ẹni tó fẹ́ ṣayẹyẹ àti alára túta. Different types of fabrics, coupon lace, foil lace, dry lace, swiss voice coral lace, fresh lace, Spanish lace, organza lace, àti kùgèlè head tie. Àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. Àwa ní Mama Betty store CWH 65 Red Block New Bagging Market Ìbàdàn. Àwọn ẹ̀rọ ìbánisọ̀rọ̀ wà rè é 070-613-55556 080-5699-8718 070-6092-3813. Gmail wa BettyMama1@gmail.com. Come patronize us today.
Wà nígbàdí nílùú Ìbàdàn àtọ́jú lọ́wọ́ aṣọ.
ọ̀rọ̀ ìgbà kan ó kàn bẹ̀rẹ̀ wọ̀ ó sì rí kí n bí kò sókè mọ́tò àbúrò dì. fresh farm sì ni kó o bá dìwò pọ̀ ní ìbá tẹ́sọ̀rọ̀ mi lé lówó rẹ̀ wọ́n máa ṣiṣẹ́ fún ọ.
títí dé o fún gbogbo èèyàn ìgbélárugẹ sí àgbẹ̀ abisútalóko abàgbàdo pọ̀pọ̀ àlọ́run èdè fresh farms iléeṣẹ́ abánipínlẹ̀ ọ̀la lẹ́ka ètò ọ̀gbẹ̀ ló ń ṣe bẹ̀bẹ̀ láti máa fi sí àgbẹ̀ pínlẹ̀ ọ̀la fún gbogbo èèyàn nípa pípín èrè oko òòjọ́ fresh farms produce káàkiri orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà àti nípa ìbánidókòwò lẹ́ka ètò ọ̀gbẹ̀ tẹ́sí máa rèrè ní tabua ní ìlànà àròjẹ àti taládà ńlá ẹlẹ́dókòwò lórí ọ̀gbìn kaṣú gbàgùdá ata tòmátì àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ tẹ́sí tún lórí ọ̀fẹ́ láti máa tọpinpin èrè oko yín lórí ẹ̀rọ ayélujára àti lójúkorojú ìlànà ìgbàlódé tó wáyà ní FacePass ti ṣàgbékalẹ̀ yìí ó fún àlàyé kàn sí wọn lórí ẹ̀rọ ayélujára www.freshfarms.ng tàbí kẹ́ ẹ pè sórí ẹ̀rọ ìbáraẹnisọ̀rọ̀ yìí 1907-361-2624 Fresh Farms pípín èrè oko òòjọ́ dìrọ̀rùn.
Splash FM 105.5.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us here on the news at 1 p.m. on Splash 105.5 FM. Turning now to the foreign scene, the United Nations has expressed outrage over Monday's horrific killings of no fewer than 58 civilians in neighboring Republic of Niger. Top officials of the organizations, including Secretary General Antonio Guterres and the President of the General Assembly, Ambassador Volkan Bozkır, reacted to the incident in separate communications. The UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, said 6 children aged 11 to 17 died in the attacks carried out by unidentified gunmen in the villages of Derede and Senegoga in western Niger. In a statement, Guterres strongly condemned the attacks and urged the Nigerian authorities to spare to spare no effort in bringing the perpetrators to justice. Earlier, UNICEF said it was deeply saddened and outraged that the casualties included civilians, especially children. The World Health Organization, WHO, said in Geneva that some countries in the European Union temporarily suspended the use of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine as a precautionary measure. In a statement, the WHO said this decision was based on reports of rare blood coagulation disorders in persons who had received the vaccine. It said, however, that other countries in the EU, having considered the same information, had decided to continue using the vaccine in their immunization programs. The statement said the WHO was in regular contact with the European medicines agencies and regulators around the world for the latest information on COVID-19 vaccine safety. Now finally to some sports news. Joan Laporta has pledged to do everything within his power to keep Lionel Messi at Barcelona after being sworn in as the club's new president, and has also told coach Ronald Koeman he has the club's backing. Laporta, who was previously Barca president between 2003 and 2010, was voted in by club members last weekend, but had to secure a €225 million bank guarantee before being inaugurated. Now in office, one of his first tasks is convincing Messi, who turns 34 in June, to extend his contract, which expires the same month, beyond the end of the season. Messi, who wanted to leave last summer, voted in last Sunday's election and was seated in front of Laporta as he made his speech at Camp Nou Wednesday in front of around 300 invitees. And now to Japan. Tokyo's Olympics creative head, Hiroshi Sasaki, says he has resigned after making a derogatory comment about a popular female Japanese entertainer in the latest controversy over insensitive remarks towards women to Heat Games organizers. Sasaki, who was the head creative director for the opening and closing ceremonies for this year's games, said he had told the planning group through a group chat that Naomi Watanabe could play a role as an Olympic. Sasaki said he had told Tokyo 2020 President Seiko Hashimoto late on Wednesday evening that he was stepping down. Hashimoto and Tokyo 2020 CEO Toshiro Muto plan to address the matter at a news conference today. Sasaki's resignation came swiftly after weekly magazine Shukan Bushon reported his remarks on Wednesday. Well, just before we go, here's a quick recap of the major headlines. UCH resident doctors have embarked on a 5-day warning strike over eyepiece. House of Representatives have urged federal government to halt licensing of oil service companies for the use of explosives. On the foreign scene, we told you that the United Nations have voiced outrage over Niger's horrific killings. And in sports, you heard the new Barcelona president, Joan Laporta, has pledged to do everything to keep striker Lionel Messi at the club. For more details on the news, you can visit our website on www.splashfm1055.com. Now you can download Splash FM mobile app on iOS, BlackBerry World, and Google Play Store to listen live, get news updates, and opinion poll. And you can also report an event live to us through the iReport feature. To download, simply go to any of the stores mentioned and search for for Splash FM 105.5 and then click to download. We now have come to the end of the news on Splash 105.5 FM, the integrity station and the best radio station in the southwest of the country. The news editor is Tunde Olawo, assisted by Abidemi Kajobola. I am Charity Jerome. Good afternoon and thank you for listening.